Frontier have today posted a new Odyssey related AMA to the official forums. There are a few questions that have been answered here, however overall the AMA is pretty short, so there's not much in the way of new revelations to be found, but there's some interesting stuff nonetheless, so let's jump in and take a look. Before we go and do that though, I want to very quickly mention two things. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has been a viewer, subscriber, Patreon backer, YouTube member, supporter, and even a regular downvoter. I've just hit 250,000 subscribers, and really 250,000 subscribers is a pretty huge deal. So thanks to everyone for watching the videos, as well as all the other support. It really does mean a lot. Secondly, a few days ago, I posted a poll on YouTube asking what people would most like to see in Odyssey. Whilst not everything about Odyssey has yet been fully revealed, meaning that at least a part of this poll had to be speculative, I think we got some pretty good responses. You can see the results on the screen right here, which includes 17,000 results or 17,000 votes. And these results are actually very interesting, with 50% of people wanting exploration focused content. Meanwhile, 21% want to see combat in Odyssey, whilst 20% are looking forward to scavenging. Of course, YouTube polls aren't exactly fully representative of any player base or indeed any subject, but even taking that into consideration, I think it's fair to say that combat is far from the only thing that people want to see in Odyssey. Whilst information on exploration and scavenging then has so far been very light, I'm seriously hoping that both of these activities will have some serious depth to them that rivals the attention that has been put into combat so far. So let's get on with that AMA then. As with the previous AMAs, the focus here is almost exclusively on combat, and much of that is regarding SRVs as well as ships. So for SRVs in particular, there's been a number of questions people have asked in the past. Firstly, will it be possible to run players over? It turns out that yes, this will be possible. It will also be possible to crash into players on foot whilst in a ship. However, with players being such a small target, I would assume that might not be all that easy. And related to the subject of players on foot being very small targets, they are in fact far too small for ship weapons to lock onto them. This means that it won't be possible for your ship's weapon to track an on-foot target. Now, I would like to think that tracking them manually by hand with fixed weapons or shooting them with dumbfire rockets should actually work. Meanwhile, on the other end of things, on-foot players will be able to lock onto ships with certain handheld weapons. Whether or not this means an on-foot player will be able to take out a small, medium or even a large-sized ship remains to be seen. Now, when it comes to combat, one of the biggest issues right now with the current version of Elite is with balance between ships. Frontier have been asked if ship versus ship combat will be rebalanced in Odyssey. Their take on this is that it doesn't actually need rebalancing, as they feel it is currently in a healthy place. They also feel that SRV combat is also in a good place. Now, Frontier's answer on this really does surprise me. Whilst I'm not a combat pilot myself, I have seen hundreds of comments from people all over the internet who feel ship combat is anything but balanced. I'm quite sure that many people were hoping that this aspect of the game is something that would be looked at in the future. Of course though, that said, there was no clarification from Frontier on whether they were referring to PvE, PvP or both, but I would assume in this case, as they weren't being specific, I would assume they did mean both. Now, I could be entirely wrong on this. It could be quite possible that most people are quite happy with the way the ships are balanced right now as they are. So it seemed time for another poll. This one hasn't been active for very long, but it should nonetheless give us a bit of insight as to how people feel about the subject. You can see the results or the early results on the screen right here, but keep an eye on this one over the next few days if you want to see how it plays out. Moving on to the other parts of the AMA, ship-launched fighters will be fully usable in ground combat areas. I guess this means that the fighters won't be able to target on-foot players, but they will still be able to get involved in the combat areas. On the subject of deploying things, whilst ships certainly will be able to deploy SRVs and fighters, ships won't be receiving any anti-personnel, vehicle bombs or related missiles. Players will also not be able to enter into on-foot combat by being dropped from a ship. Ships instead will need to be fully landed before a person can disembark. And on a very much related note, Frontier confirmed a while back that entering and leaving a ship will use the fade to black transition rather than an animated disembarkation. Now here's a pretty big one. SRVs will not be engineerable in Odyssey. Some people have taken this to mean that there will also be no new SRVs, but personally I'm not convinced of that. It seems that the main focus for engineering in Odyssey will be on suits and weapons. So if there are any new SRVs on the way, and remember there is an artwork piece on the Steam store which does actually show a different SRV variant, but if there are new SRVs, then I for one am super pleased to hear that SRV engineering won't be a thing. There's already more than enough engineering in the game as it is. And on a final note, Frontier highlighted that it will be possible to enter combat in a variety of forms. For example, they said this: there would be nothing stopping a commander in an Alliance Crusader have their two multi-crew teammates deploying in a ship-launched fighter and an SRV, both landing and then heading in on foot themselves. So there we have it. That brings us to an end of this video and all the latest information. Do let me know what you think of all this in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.